questions. If you want to go back and forth a little bit, I'd prefer more of a conversation. And I want to talk about three things. One I refer to as scenario planning. I want to also talk about mission and values, and then I also want to talk about student success. So it is a bit of an understatement to say it has been an unusual 78 days of, to be in higher education, whether as a student, as a professor, or as a chancellor. And the thing that is important to me for all of you to know is that we have been planning around potential policy changes coming out of the presidential administration for much longer than that 78 days. So really immediately after the election, we did an artificial intelligence analysis of the Project 2025 work plan, the policy papers for the America First Policy Institute, and President Trump's campaign speeches, and used all of that content through AI analysis to try to determine what were the most likely policy proposals that the administration would put forth in the first year of his presidency. And so we got some initial output from that, and then we dove a little bit deeper because there are policy changes that are more or less relevant for higher education, right? And healthcare, because we run a big academic medical center. So then we dug a little bit deeper. I'm guessing, when I have a room full of faculty and I ask how many people use artificial intelligence every day, it's kind of a smattering of hands. I'm guessing that in this room, when I ask how many people use artificial intelligence every day, I hope you're all putting your hands up because it's a super useful tool. I do, certainly. Come on, how many people use it? All right. So since you use it, you know that like that first set of queries that you put in, you get lots and lots of stuff, and then you got to figure out how to do a deeper dive. So we did more and more queries to get us to the most likely, what were the policy proposals that were likely in the first year of the Trump administration that would have an effect on higher education or would have an effect on healthcare. So we got this suite of policy proposals that came out. We looked at all of them. It felt possible to group them into 8 different categories. We then developed scenario planning groups for each of those 8 categories. And within each category, there were multiple proposals. And I actually, so I'm a statistician, right? So I actually assigned an initial probability based on what we were hearing in November, and then said to people, we have to figure out how likely we think it is that these policy proposals will come through, and how big of an impact would it have on UIC. And I'll give you an example. I think the likelihood that there will be an increase in the endowment tax is pretty high. The impact on UIC is inconsequential because we don't have a big enough endowment for the endowment tax to hit. So it's like the one time leading a higher education institution that you get to say, yay, we have very little endowment, because mostly people get excited when they have a big endowment, right? So how likely is something to happen, and then how big of an impact would it have? And then for each of those policy proposals, we asked these scenario planning groups to come up with worst case scenario, middle case scenario, least worst case scenario, right? And then for each of those levels of the scenario, what should UIC do in response? And then looking over all of those responses, what are some things that UIC should do even before there's a policy proposal? Which is one of the reasons why we did so much work on immigration actions, making sure everybody was clear on the policies on campus, clarifying what our administrative offices would or would not do, what our police would or would not do, etc. All of that before inauguration day, right? So those are the things we do beforehand. So these 8 scenario planning groups, which involve faculty and staff, and it was coming at a time when it was finals for y'all, and then also holiday. So we consulted with students, but I didn't actually want to ask students to serve on it because it was a lot of hours over an intense period of time. So we have these 8 scenario planning groups. They delivered their results to the Chancellor's office before the December holidays. And then we took those, all those responses, we looked at them, and we established an implementation group. So the idea was we got to have this group that is sort of like a, ready to go kind of group that's monitoring changes in the policy environment, thinking about, looking at all those things that we should do beforehand. Let's get going on making those things happen. And the amazing thing to me about all of this is there hasn't actually been anything that the Trump administration has done over the course of the past 78 days. And here, I want to be politically agnostic on this. It's you can love Trump, you can hate Trump, you can whatever, but I've got to figure out how to run a university with these policy proposals coming through. And what's kind of amazing to me is, and I knock on wood as I say this, but so far there haven't been any policy proposals that we didn't anticipate in one way or another. So we have a little bit of a leg up of already, when a policy proposal gets put into place, already kind of having this document that we can go back to, and we have an implementation group that's, working every week to try to get us ready. So that's what I wanted to mention about how we dealt with all of this, and continue to deal with it. The second thing I want to point out is, we're very clear about our mission. Our, UIC's mission is to provide the broadest access to the highest levels of educational, research, and clinical excellence. We believe that access and excellence, those are our 2 driving values. We believe that we have shown that you can make both of those things happen in the same place at the same time. We don't just think that we can make it happen, we have shown that we can make it happen. And I would argue, looking around this room, that each one of you is a great example of making that happen. I think all of you, centered in each one of your good hearts and strong brain, is that combination of access and excellence. Every time I'm in a room with our students, it's a good day for me. It's a good day. So we're very clear about what our mission is. We're very clear about our 2 most important core values, and every decision that we make is driven by our mission and driven by our values. And I oftentimes get asked by people, so I was at a university in Houston when Hurricane Harvey hit, and I managed at another university through COVID, and people oftentimes ask me, what's the first thing that you do in a crisis? And usually people are typically expecting you to say, I call this person, I activate this group, and what I always say is the first thing you do in a crisis is you take a deep breath and you think about your mission and your values. So with each of these things that happen, I always want to make sure that we're centering ourselves in our mission and our values. The third thing I want to mention is, so we have 5 priorities at the university: student success, increasing our research portfolio, moving the needle on important policy issues with a focus on equity in education and equity in health, partnerships with nonprofits, companies, and the government sector to create more opportunities for all of you and for our faculty. And the last one is creating an environment that makes UIC a great place to work. So it's very focused on our employees, our faculty and staff. And there's no question in anybody's mind that my top priority, the reason I named it first, it's not on accident, my top priority is student success. And we have done, and student success, and sort of proving what you can accomplish, having a very open approach towards toward access, what you can accomplish in terms of student success really defines an institution. And we have done an enormous amount of reading of all the literature of different experiments that have been done at different places, and called a bunch of people. And I actually did a lot of work on student success at my prior 2 institutions, and we came up with these 8 essential elements of student success. I wish I had brought copies of this. I can send it to Asa and you can distribute it to everyone, but I think you can also get to it on the Chancellor's website, but I'll send you a copy of this 1-pager. So there's 8 essential elements of student success, and they include things like intensive advising, making sure that we are going to students rather than just waiting for students to come to us, providing a hub where anybody who wants to get involved with research can get involved with research, especially for our first-gen students. They don't necessarily know how to go about it, and if you need to work, which many of our students do, how to go about having a conversation with a faculty member that goes along the lines of, I'd like to work with you, but also I have to have a job, so it'd be really great if it could be paid. There is a way to have that conversation. I actually like to eliminate that conversation with the undergraduates who work for me, because we don't, so I have 2 undergraduates who work for me. We don't let anybody work for our research group without being paid. So an undergraduate never has to have an awkward conversation with us about that. So there are these 8 elements of student success, and then we have 5 projects that we want to do. So we're not interested in creating these vertical silos, like over here we're going to do advising, and over here we're going to do health and well-being, and over here we're going to do that, but instead think about all of that as existing in a matrix, and students accessing all of that in different moments in their lives, maybe even in different moments during the day, right? And so the programs that we have in mind to get started cross over those 8 essential elements for student success. So one of them, for example, we're calling Success Headquarters. All of you, you only really have to be on a college campus for a month to figure out that the organization of universities is really Byzantine. And for a long time, people on the leadership side of universities have sort of been saying, well, we have to, is there water somewhere by any chance? I'm sorry. Usually I have my, this is gonna break my heart, because so far in 2025, I've only used 1 plastic bottle. Now I'm going to 2 because I almost always have my own water bottle with me, but I didn't bring it. And also, I usually spill water everywhere when I open these. It shouldn't be that hard. Okay, so the organization of universities is Byzantine, right? What do you go to the bursar for? What do you go to the registrar for? What do you go to this office for? What do you go to that office for? And for a long time, we said, we're gonna teach everybody what all these different things are. We're gonna teach them Byzantium. And I am firmly of the opinion that we should not force people to learn a ridiculous system. We should figure out a way to make that system work for the students without them having to learn all about that craziness that's behind the door. So the Success Headquarters is meant to be a place where you walk in, and no matter what you need, I need some help with financial aid, I need to talk with my advisor, I need tutoring, I want to talk about summer internships, whatever, I want to talk with somebody in the counseling center, whatever the case might be, you just walk in one place. And sometimes students don't know what they need, right? They just come and say, here's the issue that I have, here's the problem that I'm trying to deal with. And then you have people in the success headquarters that say, oh, I'm looking at that and seeing it as a combination of this and this and this, and we're gonna, right here in this one place, we're gonna get you set up to address all of those things. So that's an example of one of these initiatives that's meant to be cross-cutting across those 8 different essential elements of student success. I'm really bummed I didn't bring this one pager. I was adamant that we have to be able to put all of this down on one sheet of paper, and just like the front side of one sheet of paper. And it was a lot of thinking and a lot of ideas, and we do have this one pager now, which I am using almost every day in talking with people about getting the financial support we need to put all of these things into place. So those are the 3 things that I was going to talk about, and I'm happy to answer questions about those 3 things, or if you have other things you want to talk about, other things you want me to talk about, but I'm actually more interested in hearing your thoughts than talking more myself.
Does anyone have any questions for the Chancellor? For right now, refrain from follow-up questions, and I'll call everyone one at a time.
For the
Can you start by telling me your name and your year?
Yeah, my name's Sarah. I'm a junior. I'm a nursing major. So I had a question about the success headquarters. Maybe like I love the idea of like being able to go in and like even if you don't know what your question is, what you need help with, like maybe including like AI with that, because I know AI can, like, you can ask a question and it'll know immediately what you need. Like maybe like a system set up for when you do go, it's like a little questionnaire, so like you can set up what you need like immediately.
Girl, I like the way you think. So we're actually working with a couple of different companies to try to get sort of an AI tool that is essentially capable of scraping all the information off of every single page on the UIC website, and sort of helping to do that initial triaging of what the questions are. So you're absolutely right, and I love the fact that you're already thinking about how AI can make this happen better. You should, we'll bring you in to help test the system.
Does anyone else have a question?
Hello, my name is Ohik. I am a sophomore majoring in biology. It's great to have you here. You mentioned a lot of good points. Keeping up with the Trump administration and adapting the success headquarter AI usage. What role do you think USG will have in making those plans become success stories?
So at various points in time, as we've been talking about, as we've been trying to develop these ideas, we've consulted with various student groups. So the first thing I would say is, I'm going to send this one pager to Asa. He'll send it out to the rest of you, and as you look at it, if you have ideas, whether they be critiques or things that you think should be built up more or things that you think are missing, we would welcome that input. And then with all of the programs as we roll them out, I always think it's important to make sure that, so I went immediately with Sarah, I went immediately with Sarah, like, oh, you could come help test this out, right? To make sure that we are, we are thinking about this from the perspective of how a student would enter that system, enter that room, enter that set of resources. And I like to think that I stay close to the, what's going on in the minds of young people and the different generations, etc. But come on, man, look at me. You know that no matter how close I stay, we've got to bring students in to help us understand which of these things are working and which things aren't working. So.
Quinn?
Quinn.
Chancellor Miranda, I'm Quinn Bassa, senior majoring in finance. So
Working on your smart aleck skills, trustee.
I know you're a visionary, and I gotta say, one of the reasons why I chose to come to UIC was because my father went here back in the 80s and he told me how far it's come. And I was really sold on the vision of what UIC can be. And my degree appreciating after I graduate.
There you
But
go.
I'm curious, what is your vision of where UIC can be, what it can do for the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois, say 10 years from now? What's your dream, what's your ideal vision for UIC?
10 years from now.
Yes.
So I have an immediate answer to that question, but some of my immediate answer to that. Let me give you the answer to that question that I would have given on January 19th, and then I'll talk a little bit about how, how we're gonna need to think a little bit more. So 10 years from now, I wanna see the graduation rate increase by 10 percentage points. 10 years from now, I wanna see the disparities in graduation rates amongst different student subgroups, whether it's racial subgroups, Pell, non-Pell eligible, first gen, non-first gen. I want to narrow, if not disappear, those differences, those disparities in graduation rates. That's one of the reasons so when we talk about student success, there's a lot that goes into defining that. 10 years from now, I would have liked to have seen, this is one of the ones where we're going to have to see how it works out. I would have said we have about a $500 million research portfolio right now, and I would like to see 10 years from now there be a $750 million portfolio. I don't know, we're gonna take a serious hit in the next several years, so I don't know whether we can get there on that one. But more importantly, it's not just are we gonna be bringing in more research dollars, but what are we able to accomplish with those dollars? UIC has contributed to some major breakthroughs in biomedical research that have made the lives of many, many people better. None of you are old enough to have gotten the shingles vaccine. I am old enough to have gotten the shingles vaccine, and avoiding shingles is a great thing, and increasingly we're seeing that avoiding shingles avoids the pain of having shingles, but it also seems to be related to progression of dementia and different things like that. So I'd like to see, some additional biomedical breakthroughs. We also had a phenomenal breakthrough with Prezista, which was a drug that probably saved, tens of millions of lives in sub-Saharan Africa. It's an HIV drug. I would like to see UIC playing a serious role in the city of Chicago, narrowing educational equity gaps and health equity gaps. And I want UIC to be viewed as the go-to place when, we are of the city in a way that the other Research One universities are not quite of the city in the same way. Our students stay in Chicago, we're training Chicago's workforce. So I want us to be having an impact, and I want us to be recognized as a go-to place. I want people across the city of Chicago to understand how fabulous this university is already and how much more fabulous it will be 10 years from now. I think this is one of these, UIC is one of these places where I spend a lot of time going out, giving talks, talking to people about UIC, telling them about this place. In a couple of weeks, we're hosting the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce, which means that the heads of all the major businesses in Chicago are going to be on our campus for their quarterly board meeting. That wasn't accidental. That was so I'm a member of the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce board, and that was my kind of working my board connections, saying, wouldn't it be great to have one of our meetings on UIC's campus so you can stop calling it Circle Campus and see that it is, see the amazing place that it is right now. So improvements in graduation rates, closure of disparities in graduation rates, increase the amount of research, increase the impact of our research, playing a serious role in Chicago around key issues of educational and health equity, raising the profile of the university so that people understand all the good things that go on here and understand how great it is to bring a student who graduated from UIC into your company or into your agency.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the Chancellor? Sure.
Hi, my name is Daniel.
This is one of my favorite things about UIC. People put their hand up and like, no, you were first. No, you were first. No, you were first. People are nice at UIC. I love that.
Hi, my name is Daniel. I'm a sophomore majoring in data science. So how do you think we as USC are doing so far for our university, and what areas do you think we can improvise?
Well, I think the answer, what areas can USG improve, that's not something to ask me about. That's something to ask your fellow students about. But I do think that there are, concrete differences. Also was talking about them in his State of the Students address the other day. There are concrete differences. I flew in, I'm gonna go off on a bit of a tangent. I flew in, I was in New Jersey this weekend because my very first grandchild was in New Jersey. She's so cute. I'll show all of you photos of her afterwards if you want to see her. And oh, her name is Maria Elena. What? She's your namesake, Chancellor? Is that what you're saying? Anyway, I'm pretty excited about her. I flew in from New Jersey and into O'Hare, and I took the Blue Line to campus. And as I was taking the Blue Line, I was thinking, last year we did this deal with the CTA, and we had a deal with the CTA, we added Metra to it, and just facilitating that ability to transit all over the city is really great. The student government did some really good work around making cultural institutions more accessible for all of our students. I really like that. But what you should be doing better and what you should be doing more of, for me, all I think you should be doing more of is getting a faithful representation of the needs and interests of the students across campus and working on those yourself and presenting them to leadership, to academic leadership to say, can you help us move forward on these things?
Thank you. Well, hello, thank you for coming.
Yeah, we can still have that honeybee conversation.
Oh, okay, so you didn't forget. I asked Chancellor Miranda on Thursday. I'm interested in becoming a beekeeper. So I asked how to start because I can't find anything on Google that's presentable. So we're due for a conversation.
So what he's saying is, I am a beekeeper.
Oh, yeah. My name is Nathan. Second year computer science student. So my question for you is more so, I love the fact that you are mentioning stuff as student success. Everyone knows here how much I love student success, but basically, you're mentioning a success headquarters, and I think working with student success leadership over the past year, things are difficult, as you were mentioning, but more so, I think a large component of this is the financial support, which you also mentioned. So in your mind, what is kind of your timeline essentially for getting a success headquarters up and running for students?
Well, it's my number one ask philanthropically.
Okay.
So we have to get the resources in to move it forward. We're getting very good feedback on it. I'll be in a better position to answer that question 6 months from now because we're putting together a series of proposals based off of this that have been invited by foundations and others. So a little bit of it is dependent upon how quickly we can get resources in. And one of the things I want to be clear about is there is a lot to deal with all the policy changes coming out of Washington, D.C. Without question, there is a lot to deal with there. We are not allowing that to distract us from our top priority of addressing student success at the university. So I work on things coming out of Washington DC every day. I work on our student success initiatives every day. And there are a lot of people who work on them every day who don't have to work on the things coming out of Washington DC. So one of the things that we've done is sort of protected the group of people who are working to flesh out the details and pull everything together, protecting them from the chaotic environment that we find ourselves in right now, so that they can continue to move ideas and ways of actually implementing this forward.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chancellor. I'm Cameron. I'm a business management major. You speak about the White House and the policies coming out of it. We've seen in recent times students being deported for peaceful protests. What policies is the university putting in place to assist or help students who may get in a situation like that just for protesting?
Yeah. You know, the Constitution of the United States hasn't changed. The First Amendment is still the right to free speech. There is, you know, and for me, some of these arrests that have occurred is a real encroachment on that First Amendment to the Constitution. In terms of what we would do here at UIC, there are, so first of all, we never disclose any information about our students unless there is a judicial warrant that requires us to do that. And to date, there have been no such judicial warrants, and we're like, okay, we're just not going to do that. But I think that if you look at some of the students who've been arrested, I don't think their academic institutions provided any information. I think that social media, there's enough of people's presence on social media for these various federal agencies to figure out who participated in what and where they might live and those sorts of things. So we don't provide information unless we are legally required to do so. That's one thing. The second thing, if students or faculty members get caught up in such a situation, we direct them to resources that are available. There is a student legal aid fund, but the student legal aid fund, the people associated with that really don't know very much about immigration law. It's really more for other things. So we've already lined up a suite of resources that we can direct students to or faculty to. Like, these are people who could really, we could really help with that. I think you've seen a couple of instances of, we're already talking with deans about if they're, actually, we're not already, tomorrow, we will be talking with deans about if there are situations where a student has to, for their own personal safety, has to leave the country, we need to figure out a way for them to be able to finish out the term virtually. So we're trying to put that into place. We're also, this is a time where I don't think it has proven very productive for individuals, whether an individual chancellor or an individual institution, to stand up and shout very loudly. This is a time where if you look at what's been successful in the courts, it has much more commonly been when we leverage professional associations or we leverage networks of universities to bring things to bear in the legal system. So on those issues that you're talking about, we are currently working with one of these networked efforts to contest, sort of submit documents as part of legal filings. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not great at getting exactly the right words. being part of producing the documentation that supports the legal filings that are going forward around this particular set of policies.
So I had another question. So UIC is primarily like, there's a lot of research that goes through the school, undergraduate research, graduate research, and I know there's also a lot of policies coming out of the presidential like team about cutting research programs as well. So I was just wondering what that UIC has planned to kind of help more students with their research and to kind of not like go with that.
Yeah.
Have people do more research.
Yeah. So there was a proposal by the administration to cut the F&A rate, the indirect cost, the overhead rate, it's called, it's all the same thing, to 15%. And if that had gone through, and it was just on NIH grants, if that had gone through, there would have been a $48 million per year loss in funding to UIC. So that's a whole lot of simoleons. So, you know, which is why we were very active. This was one of these places where we joined several different, it was AAMC, the American Association of Medical Colleges, the Association of Public Health Schools and something, APL, you know, the Public Health Professional Association, to, you know, sort of push back through the courts to say, you know, that's illegal, a contract was already established, Congress already appropriated the dollars, et cetera. So these are really significant figures that we're talking about. It's also the case that these are really, these grants, you know, we have a $500 million grant portfolio, but that $500 million grant portfolio is composed of 3,400 grants, and each of those 3,400 grants is part of the intellectual excitement and progress that individual faculties are making happen, and that they bring undergraduate and graduate students in. So, so there is this impact on scientific lives as well. And the thing about that, I'm gonna be really candid. If you talk about that out in the broader world, it really doesn't have much impact on people. People who are not part of higher education or who haven't gone through higher education don't really understand what research is. They don't really understand what overhead costs are. It seems like, you know, people who get to go to school or get to be faculty members have pretty good jobs. What are they, you know, pretty good lives, what are they complaining about? It's not a sympathetic, even though to me, it is incredibly dangerous incredibly dangerous for this country for us to squelch the research excitement that you see on campuses all over the country. So instead, what I tend to talk about is when we cut research like that, that's an Alzheimer's drug that isn't developed in time to help your parents with their dementia or you with your dementia. When we cut research like that, that is a failure to get battery storage to work better. When we cut research, like, you know, I kind of go through all these kinds of examples where it has an impact on the daily lives of everybody in this country, and they can start thinking about this direct connection between research that's conducted at universities and the lives that they're living every single day, right? So that's how we talk about it, and I do a lot of that I do a lot of that through, I'm a fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and AAAS has developed something called Vision for American Science and Technology, which is all about what are the investments we need to make in science and technology. R&D. Your question, however, was what about students in all of this? So one of the things that we are in the process of doing is figuring out what are the, we will lose federal funding. There's no question that we will have less federal funding in the coming year than we had in the previous year. So then the question becomes, what are the things that we absolutely have to hold on to, because if that ball rolls too far down the hill, it's just impossible to roll it back up the hill. And I put into that category, for example, our the animal colonies for our in vivo work. I put into that category our clean room, where we do particular kinds of science and engineering work. And I put into that category support of undergraduate participation in research. We get exciting new ideas. We light a fire about discovery in the hearts and minds of young people when we do that. So for me, that's in the, it's not in the nice to have category. That's in the need to have category as we think about how do we deal with these cuts. The other thing that I'm going to go on a little bit ne than you want me to, but I have the microphone and it's the right height for me now. If all you care about is national security and economic prosperity, and those are perfectly valid things to spend a lot of time worrying about. I spent a lot of time worrying about national security and economic prosperity. The return on investment and the extent to which research at universities has allowed the United States to be economically prosperous and to be secure. And the importance of that in this era of cybersecurity issues, encryption issues, all those sorts of things, the importance of that, of research that goes on at universities for national security and economic prosperity is even higher now than it was during the Cold War.
My name is Michael. I'm a senior in data science, and knowing your experience all across the country at different universities and selfishly in data science as well,
Yep.
with
I see there's computer science, data science, a couple of those. I'm liking this room. Somebody talks to me right away about using AI to get this is a smart room, I like it.
I'm curious with how the job market looks today and the uncertainty politically and financially. What's one piece of wisdom you have for students that are graduating soon or starting their careers soon?
Well, the first thing I want to do is give advice to people who are just starting like the sophomores in this room. Let me give advice to them, which is to go to our Career Center tomorrow and start thinking about the internships that you're going to have, whether a short internship during the summer or a longer internship, a shadowing experience, a mentoring experience. We have been putting a lot of effort into expanding the opportunities that are becoming available through the Career Center. And the director of the Career Center is bringing some creative ideas. Because the sooner you get involved in that, it's kind of like there's momentum that gets built up. The other thing I would say for the sophomores is if there's something that you're particularly, and freshmen, if there's something that you're particularly interested in, try to find a faculty member who works on it and try to get engaged with their research in one way or another, because there is a job in all of that. So set yourself up for being able to tell the story of how you explored your interests, of how you deepened your skills and your capabilities, both in the classroom and alongside the classroom. People tend to talk about the curriculum and extracurriculars. I tend to talk about the curriculum and the co-curriculum. So if you can sort of narrate the story about, I'm studying data science and I work with this faculty member, I use these tools to, figure this thing out, and then I went and I worked for a nonprofit and brought those skills. So you're telling this story of what you're doing that puts you in a better position as you go out into the job market. And then you've been exposed to places who might want to say, hey, come on back. The advice that I would give to people who are about to graduate is to reflect back on what you've done over the course of the past several years and develop that. Make sure you have that narrative in place. Don't go into a job interview saying, like, I'm this major and here's my resume. So, you know, be ready to tell the story of your journey as a college student, and have some specific examples to talk about it. Those specific examples make you a little bit more memorable in the review process. And use your AI skills to figure out what are the things that you have to put in your resume for your resume to get like pinged out of an AI system that is evaluating resumes and cover letters, right? So you can do your own AI work to figure out how you're gonna get AI'd, and you're like reverse AIing it, right? So that you're putting the stuff in that makes things more noticeable. And just network every chance you get, any opportunity you have to, to meet people who, meet people who work at different companies, career fairs, you're going to a, you're going to some event downtown, and you run into someone, and I carry my business cards around all the time, because I'm always looking for jobs for you guys. I'm like, we have great students, send me an email, and I'm gonna connect you with some great students. So, just network all the time. And it's, I find, so I am actually more introverted by nature. I've had to learn extroversion skills. And for people who are more introverted, that networking feels like it's harder. But you've got to learn those skills, and the extent to which networks help us move forward. It's what you know, and it's who you know. And one of the things we're trying to do at UIC is make sure that people out there are thinking to themselves, I wanna get a student from UIC here in this position opening that we have.
All right. Let us thank Chancellor Miranda for those wonderful pieces of wisdom today.
It was nice to be with all of you.